Hear what the spirit of prophecy in the ark of the covenant that was upheld in the midst of the Jordan testify. You've got to hear this.
You must hear what God has done. God has done something unspeakably wondrous. He's done it thousands of years ago. There is a spirit of prophecy active in the scriptures, and it has a testimony, and you must hear that. Remember the Ark of the Covenant that the priests were holding in the midst of the parted waters of the Jordan, that you have known perhaps since childhood. It has a testimony that you must hear.
Understand, the ark that was upheld in the midst of the Jordan waters is a physical prophecy, and it has meaning just like prophecy
It is filled with the
has.
spirit of prophecy. There is more to that. Please hear. They were standing. In other words, to stand means to be established. The priest ties with the execution, with the officiating. They were lifting up, right? There was established the uplifting of
The ark of the covenant.
find that the word for the ark ties with a type of a coffin, a box, something that is used for gathering. It has a primitive root that means to pluck, and it is called the Ark of the Covenant. The root word for covenant goes to cutting. Thus it is the gathering coffin of cutting. Remember that Messiah was cut off, not for himself, but for us. It is a sign of death. Please hear, they were standing, right? There was established the uplifting of.
The ark of the covenant. The box, the coffin of the cutting.
Was established. The gathering coffin of death, that stands. The death verdict stands, beloved. It stands. Your good works, my good works, none of that can save us, because it is not taking the gathering coffin of death. There was standing the execution of the gathering coffin of death that was upheld. Jesus was not spared the death. It is the sign of the cutting of the Lord.
Did you hear that? The ark of the covenant upheld in the midst of the Jordan is the sign of the cutting of the death of the Lord.
Now the word that's translated there in Joshua 3, for the Lord ties with God. Yahweh. It ties with the holy name of God. That ties with breath. The first time we read that name, we find that it is spoken of him, that he is God who has breathed out his breath. God, who is the breather outer of his breath, and he is the one that is, as he said to Moses, thus he breathed out and he is. Standing there in the Jordan ties with descent, has upheld the gathering coffin of death of the breather outer of his breath.
The physical sign that has got prophetic meaning continues because we read
On dry ground, the word that is there in the Hebrew ties with withering.
the sign of the ark, the sign of the coffin, was established upon withering.
Jesus was withering away. He was bleeding. The water and blood came
The
out.
sign of the ark, the sign of the coffin of gathering, was established in the midst of the Jordan.
And it was in the midst of the descent, withering away, was upheld. The gathering coffin of plucking, of cutting. It is a sign of death, the death of Jesus.
The physical sign that has a prophetic meaning continues because all of Israel passed through.
And all of Israel, and that word in the Hebrew ties, the having the power to prevail of God's mighty turn.
See the sign, for they was surely upheld in the midst of the descent, in the midst of death, going down to death, upon the dry withering, the gathering coffin, cutting of death, and so passed through the power of God to prevail, mighty
Was
to turn.
passing through. In Jesus passed through death, and was upheld, the gathering coffin of death. Jesus didn't negate the death verdict, he took it. The gathering coffin of plucking, of cutting. The ark was made of shittim wood. It's acacia wood. Thorns. It is made of the wood of thorns. Wood ties with fastening in the Hebrew, and thorns with piercing. You see the sign of the gathering coffin of plucking made of thorns. Jesus took the piercing of the thorns. Jesus took the gathering of death that was upheld in the execution thereof. Amid the descent, amid the death descent, standing on his withering, so to and move through the might of God's ability to turn and twist and prevail. Jesus, having the might to prevail and rise, entered death and rose. God's ability to turn the death verdict for us is established because he has respected and taken it. We don't have to. God can turn the death and prevail in Jesus fulfilled. See the sign. Hear what the Spirit of prophecy says when you read of the ark amidst the waters and the passing through. It testifies Jesus, whereby we live. Follow that. Follow Jesus. It is your only way to the promised land. It is established that the punishment for sin is death, and the one that covers that, the one that can pass through that and live, the one that can give you a way into heaven, is Jesus alone. It is his sign. It is the only way that you can be saved. Hear the testimony of the Spirit of prophecy and praise God. Please, if this has touched you, like the video. Help make this visible. There are billions of people out there. Help them see the ark. Help them understand the testimony of the Spirit of prophecy, which is Jesus, so that they can follow him and live. Praise God. Please tell people to watch, like, and share, and be partakers in the spreading of the testimony. That is our love.
The descriptions of the Ark of the Covenant has got a testimony. Please watch and hear what the testimony is.